Uh, we'll do a roll call. Can you start, Mr. Day?
John Day, Joe Palulik,
Aaron Farbo.
Amy Monahan.
David Morse.
Mark Blackmore.
Joseph Ataletta.
Okay, designated. Huh? Oh, Sid's here. Sorry, Sid. Sid Blodgett is also here. Started without him. Sorry about that, Sid. Designation of alternates, John and Amy will be seated. And we'll go with the Pledge of Allegiance.
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on to the discussion of the next section of the POCD. I think it's 8:45 in here. Ah. 40 something.
So, last month, we got through Preserve. Did we got into some of Develop, did we not?
I thought we stopped there.
I think
Okay.
we talked about topics that were brought up. I know Joe Adelante brought up something for this discussion, so we talked a little bit about it, but we didn't go through it.
Okay, all right. So let me get to that section. So that's section 5. It's approximately page 45 on your version, maybe a little bit, 1 or 2 off there, depending on which version we've got. I'm going to bring it up on the screen, which I understand is a little bit blurry. I was trying to focus it a little bit this afternoon, but it's not ideal. I'll make it as large as I can.
If you don't, does everybody have a copy in front of them?
Yes.
There were 2 extra copies on the table.
Yeah.
And I am, let's review and make sure I have a markup. Okay. I'll start talking unless you have a order of how you'd like to proceed, Mr. Chair.
No, I think that'd be a good way to start, and then people have questions, we can stop and talk and.
Okay. So we start with, again, the statement from the vision statement, which is we envision a Woodstock that develops its land and its economy in a way that expands opportunity. This should be in Woodstock in a sustainable way without sacrificing our history or our future. And we talk about the need for a balanced approach. And obviously we rely on property taxes. And so a diverse property tax base is important, but not interested in necessarily sacrificing those things that make Woodstock, particularly natural resources and open spaces. Talk a little bit about our current economic base, how we're largely in the community district. We have a small area of industrial, a couple of the largest employers, including Linemaster, Rogers, Northeast Replacement. Talking a little bit about some of those. I'm sorry?
It's a quick one. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Rogers is located on Woodstock Road, not Woodstock Avenue.
Woodstock Road. Okay. Good call.
And another quick question.
Yes, John.
When he's ready. Yeah. Are you ready, John? I know
Yeah,
he's
go.
making some connections there. But just a clarification, you say it's some of the largest employers, which is good, the Woodstock Public School System. Just want to know if that includes the academy, or is it just the pre-K through 8? And in which case we should add the academy.
Good point. I think that probably including the academy. I think that doesn't necessarily, the advanced CT listing wouldn't necessarily include the academy, but if I think for the purposes of this, the Woodstock education system broadly defined would but I think it's technically a different employer. It's a private entity.
Yes, just
that's a good. Yeah. It was basically. Yeah, no, this was pulled. It was pulled from the advanced CT, which is the one of the state's economic development nonprofits. I'd also note, for the record, Mr. Chair, Doug Porter has joined us.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
And
Hey,
I-
Doug.
I had a little trouble clicking on the link, so it took me a few minutes. So,
Well, glad you're here.
okay,
Okay, so again, just this is just in terms of the basically sort of throat clearing or table setting of our current economic base. Talk a little bit about the limited land, at least in terms of zoning, that is specifically dedicated towards economic development on business growth. But and as well as that limitation in terms of zoning, as well as our infrastructure limitation can place some difficulties on economic growth. And changing direction would necessitate probably easing of one or both constraint, I should say. The map is on the map the Census Bureau tool, which shows Woodstock as largely a job exporter. Some towns, dispute the characterization of a bedroom community, but broadly speaking, of the labor force in Woodstock, a significant majority leaves Woodstock. Over 3,500 leave Woodstock for employment. We import about 1,100, and about 540 people both live and work here in town.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, excuse me, Joseph has a question?
Yeah.
John, and maybe the commission as a whole, I just want to kind of address maybe a philosophical approach about some of the language used in here, particularly.
Okay.
There are two places in the page you're on.
Yep.
Woodstock is primarily a bedroom community.
Mhm.
And there's another section under housing, page 51, which is a resident called Woodstock. It's a residential community. I'm thinking we want to maintain a sense that it's an agricultural community. And my feeling is that we talk about Woodstock as a bedroom community or a residential community, it may give the impression that there's a lot of opportunity for development or housing to expand the bedroom community thinking. And if it's using it only based on population size, which is certainly one measure, I would think it's more appropriate to talk about both the character, the land mass, what's mostly used in Woodstock in terms of acreage or square miles of the town of Woodstock is mostly for agriculture. So my point is to talk more broadly about Woodstock as an agricultural community, clearly with residential input and export. But I think I'd like to see it maintain the kind of concept that it's an agricultural.
I would like it to stay an actual agricultural community, but the reality is we're losing another one this year. So I agree with your wording, but when do we come to the point where we have to face the fact that it's maybe more of a bedroom community than an agricultural community? Are we at that point yet?
Well, I
You know what I mean?
think the point is not label ourselves as a bedroom community.
Right.
But it's only in relation to the fact that
It's just about job location is the phrasing. Yeah. And that's actually,
you hear that in reference to other cities and towns which are truly 95% residential, and that residential population is a bedroom community.
what other population? We're talking about the population. What other population is there? A farm is not a person.
No, but I don't know if we need to use the language calling Woodstock a bedroom community or a residential community.
I'm open to hearing a replacement.
So I think the way to deal with this is to be more specific rather than less specific. But just say that Woodstock has a dual nature. It serves as a residential community for a number of its residents. However, it has a long history and backbone of agricultural enterprise or farms, however you want to say it.
Or in this sentence, just drop primarily a bedroom community and just have it, Woodstock is sending the majority of its workforce out of town.
Yeah.
That's an accurate statement
Yes.
without labeling the town in a certain way.
When you hear bedroom community, what do you think?
Suburbs.
Yeah, I think the burbs and, you know, I think of Levittown.
The suburbs have far more economic development than Woodstock does.
Yes, I know, but still, that's,
Yeah, you asked a good question. That's, what comes to mind when you hear the term bedroom community?
What is the
That's-
definition?
As a label.
The definition is it's a primarily residential area or suburb where most residents commute to larger cities for work. It gets its name because residents primarily use the town to sleep.
So I think, it's technically accurate, but if you don't like the sound of it, we'll take it out.
I don't like the sound of it and I don't like the reality of it, but I guess I'm a little concerned in this discussion is, do we agree that it is almost a bedroom community and we just don't want to put it in the POCD?
yes.
Or, okay,
That's-
because as a planning, I'm sorry, but as a planning and zoning commission, I just want to make sure that we're not dreaming about how our community is versus what it really is, because I wish that it was, more agricultural and less, but it is getting closer to being that bedroom community. I just want to make sure we all kind
So
of
I lived in.
agree with that.
I lived in a bedroom in Shrewsbury, Mass for about 12, 13 years. This is not.
How is
Mass.
Shrewsbury a bedroom community? They have tons of jobs and everything in it.
Everyone commuted out to 495 and the tech jobs and works in the hospitals in Worcester. Basically, everybody commuted in Shrewsbury. There was not that much industry in Shrewsbury. The people who worked in the places along Route 9 couldn't afford to live in Shrewsbury. So I feel we're not there yet, but.
Right. And I'm hoping we can keep agriculture, which is a prime economic driver in Woodstock, sustainable.
I am too. I just wanted to see where we all stood.
I think it's an attract. I think, sure, we know a lot of people live here and they've chosen to live in an agricultural rural community because it's nice.
Yeah,
And the fact that they can't find a job here or have to go to Hartford or Providence or Boston, that's just the way it is.
in the agricultural section here talks, about how to improve the opportunities for agriculture, agribusiness, agritourism and that. So I like that part where it's trying to, the POCD has that plan of continuing to promote agriculture as a basic economic engine of Woodstock.
Right. And I think taken as a whole, it would be really, really hard to miss the focus on agricultural promotion in this plan. But, if specific words that, accurately, if unpleasantly describe the employment situation, that's fine.
Okay.
Sid had a comment?
I just want to add a third leg of the stool, and that's forest land. I think forest land exceeds agricultural land and residential land uses combined. It's privately owned, they pay taxes, they require minimal services. And it adds a lot to the community as far as quality of life, air, water, recreation, aesthetics.
Which I think we cover pretty significantly in the preserve section.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
The first half of the plan.
John,
All
one
right.
more thing, we leave this page, the figure.
Yeah.
The map, why is the map tilted and not true north? It seems weird to me that.
I noticed that right. I was like, that's really.
Aaron, I couldn't tell you. This is the US Census's website. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe during
That's fine.
a Democratic administration, it tilts the other way. I couldn't tell you.
Tilting to the left.
Okay. All right. So moving on, we do talk about the Economic Development Commission doing this survey. of various businesses, sort of a census of what's going on in town. Wide variety, just again, a assembly of information. Talk, yeah.
I'll jump in again.
Well, yeah,
Anyways, go ahead.
I had a comment. Under that, kennels are mentioned in two places in that.
Okay.
That's going.
Yeah,
Just-
this was okay.
Yeah, I know, I just,
Personal service, where is the kennel in the second place?
it's under general services,
General services.
and it's under animal, the second.
Oh,
one down.
yeah. Okay, well,
I mean, I just noticed it. I don't-
yeah.
And I was just gonna ask about the advanced CT 2025, you make a note there that it lists over 130 active businesses in Woodstock. And the table that's here shows 211, and that's a fairly large difference.
It sure is. That was a survey.
This is a survey, okay. So is
So
it
undertook a survey in that, of local businesses, we could say
Yep. Doesn't a town hall have a record of businesses from tax records of saying who are businesses, or the grand list would be able
So,
to identify?
A lot of our businesses are like licensed businesses only, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like
And
offices
they're-
or that type of service. The survey was more of
Yeah,
go
We-
to like
right.
brick and
And
mortar.
there's a much larger list of trade names than there actually are businesses, and there are a number of businesses that wouldn't necessarily declare private property tax, so wouldn't necessarily show up on the assessor's records or the tax collector's records. It's an imperfect system.
The website says it's based on the Secretary of State business registration, so, I mean, I have an LLC, so it's probably counted on there.
All the LLCs are.
Probably
Yeah,
is,
and it's
sure.
It's not a real business, but
no, but my only point is you have numbers and it gives impressions. And you say, well, there are only 211 businesses in Woodstock. And okay, that's a survey response. But if there are some 500 listed businesses, it gives a different impression of somebody reading a report. And you can qualify that 530, say that includes the 211, but also includes, and you did say in here that there are home occupations and other things, but
Mhm.
it-
So we explained
It's
it, but
good.
we should explain it.
I think it's explained, the total 211. It would be nice to have that kind of a comment to compare the 211 is the result of survey response. And the 503rd, have that in the narrative.
it's at the top above the table. Yeah.
Says it did a survey.
So I just added a line, and I don't know if this is clear on your screen, but so I just added the line. While the results were not comprehensive, they came up with over 200 businesses in a wide variety.
And that's good. Any chance of putting that whole sentence below the table, so it's very close to the advanced CT narrative?
So the whole, I'm
No, just 3 lines, the Woodstock economic.
oh,
those
okay,
3.
including those. All right. Well, let me change that. Let me change below to above. We'll do that here.
Yep.
Perhaps I'll do that there if my computer
Or-
freezes.
Yeah, just
Now
so
you-
that, because
Now you did it, Adaletta.
you lose those first three sentences, you look at the chart, you read below it.
Right.
All right. So that hopefully
Maybe give some space.
my screen stops spinning. It'll show up.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments?
So if you do that, you have to, after Economic Development Commission undertook, parentheses, represented above in the help chart.
He has it at the end of a sentence.
Otherwise it would be very confusing.
Oh, yeah, right. Listed above.
Sean, I've got a general comment on the recommendations, but you may not be ready to go there.
All right, so I think I'm back. Can you guys? I think the screen share is. Oh, right.
Yeah, we lost the screen share.
Okay, let me. All right, I'm gonna close my Microsoft Word and I'll reopen it and we'll try this again. Meanwhile, you guys go ahead. I'll take notes by hand as I'm waiting for my computer to catch up.
You had a comment, Sid?
Yeah, so there are about a dozen recommendations for this first subsection. And it's always that balancing act. I mean, how general, broad, non-committal do you want to be versus how focused? So most of these recommendations talk about engaging, working with, promoting, considering, exploring, nothing really committed, except for the first one, which says develop regulations. And yeah, I think we're all maybe game for that. I just want to highlight that this is a pretty committable recommendation. And don't know if you want to keep it as is or try to back away from it a little bit in case we have a change of heart in the next couple of years and say, well, we really don't want to do that, but that POCD says we have to. Just throwing
If you
it
have
out there.
if you have a significant change of heart, you can modify the POCD. This is not in stone.
Uh-huh.
What regulations were you envisioning, Sid?
I wasn't, but those two words caught my attention as,
Yeah.
you know, meanwhile, the other recommendations are kind of soft and fuzzy.
Yeah.
It's pretty firm.
It's because this is the only real body in town that has the power and the ability to drive the change. That's probably why it is, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we are the one that makes the yes or no for the future.
And I'm not opposed to leaving this in there, simply wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
So I had sort of a slightly, sort of a slightly relevant comment. Did we ever do a careful study of the recommendations, what recommendations were followed and which were ignored from the last POCD? Yes. So we know what we accomplished and what we did, that was done.
My recollection is Delia Fay put together kind of a summary sheet of
Right.
bulleted items, and certainly not all of the recommendations that the last one were addressed, but she tried to put together, and I can bring that, dig that up and bring that to show what she felt were items.
Shouldn't we, as part of this, have some mention of how we're going to assess how well we're doing with this? A report card
Yes.
or-
If you go to the end, I mean, if we were skipping to the end, we have the implementation guide, which indicates the primary actor supporting entities, as well as priority and rough cost estimates. So the implementation table at the end provides some of that detail in a relatively concise way.
So John, I went through that. It was a little unclear to me who would be actually doing the work of going to that.
So, do you want me to jump to the, so first of all, can you see the screen again?
Let's do it when we get to it.
All right, so the last thing I was trying to do, so Sid was talking about this first recommendation, right? The develop regulations. And I missed if there were some clear direction on keeping or removing or watering down.
I'm just, again, not raising a red flag, just bringing people's attention that this is one of the few recommendations in the document that's committing us to really do something.
Okay.
I mean that in a negative way.
Yeah.
I mean, recommendations.
There are plenty of others in here
No recommendation.
suggesting P and Z
Yeah.
look at regulations, zoning regulations.
Okay, so yeah, I'm fine leaving it the way it is.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, do you want to jump to the implementation guide just to take a quick look, or do you want to just proceed as we
Let's
are?
just continue this and we'll deal with that when we get there.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions about recommendations? There's no need for me to read these to you. Does anybody have any thoughts?
No, I mean, those are all things that we've been talking about.
Okay.
as-
Okay,
Anybody
and so
else?
then the next section is about specifically farm viability and agribusiness. So it's not just about farm preservation. It is about making farms more profitable so that there is not only they grow the economy, but stay in production. Delia had done some analysis. There are some tables in here about reasons why farms made changes in terms of expanding, diversifying, selling, changing the products, the types of operations. So it just kind of provides some flavor of the specific operations in Connecticut, and as well as Woodstock's place in agriculture, generally speaking. We do talk about looking at more farm diversity opportunities, farm promotion in terms of tax abatements, right to farming, right, agricultural regulations, promoting agritourism, and expanding those definitions in a way that would continue to improve viability and economic competitiveness of farm operations. Anything in there? I mean, some of this is covered a little bit and maybe a bit redundant of the agriculture preservation section, which makes some sense because farming is certainly both an economic driver and an element of preservation.
John, could we, I was talking to someone today, actually got flowers from one of our very small flower farms. And she has people, she offers classes, and she has people coming in from Boston to take her classes. And like New Boston Beef has people from Boston at their classes.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be worth I'm not saying allocate money, but look into advertising out of the area or promotion out of the area to bring money in? I don't know how to word it, but that seems to be, I know Echo Farm and the creamery, they have people that come down once a month to buy their specific products because it's the closest store that sells them to Boston. So I think maybe expanding the reach of our advertising or our relationships into the cities to get people to come out. I just don't know how to word that accurately.
Is that something for was there an economic development?
Here's a detail.
It is one. It would, they would probably be responsible for figuring out how to do that. Down the road, we would need funding probably for some sort of tourism or figuring out coalitions, but I think it's worth looking into.
So
if we want people to spend money, we want them to be not us.
if you can see it on the screen, I've added a draft. So recommendation, explore, or maybe it should be explore.
Yes.
A collective promotion of Woodstock's agricultural, agritourism businesses to regional and interstate markets.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And since we're here, I'll just throw one more thing out of relative to what's called a farm. So that somebody who builds a barn, they have events at a barn, but call it a farm. Just want to make sure we're not defining farms so broadly that somebody can do that they buy a property with a house and a barn on it and want to turn it into a music festival or event venue and get the tax advantages of a farm. But really, in my mind, they're not necessarily a typical farm.
You gotta be careful with typical farm.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I mean, so there's
tends to have it.
Regulations for what you to be farm to get the tax credits
And
or tax advantages.
yeah, okay, and
so-
this may not be the right place to have it, but I mean, the POCD, but maybe in regulation somewhere, need to have
there are little subtle ways we could do it. I'm looking here at the recommendation at the bottom of page 50, where we say expand the definition of agritourism to enable new opportunities to keep farms in business. We could throw in the qualifier bona fide, something like that.
I like that.
Or, yeah, qualified.
And we've already raised the tax exempt limit.
Okay.
on that
Where was that section, John?
page 50.
And-
Well,
End of the
Yeah.
bottom of page 50, the second to last recommendation on that page, where we
Richard.
start with expand the definition of.
Got it, okay, including on bona fide farms. Okay.
So
Mhm.
are you familiar, Joe, just a question I'm trying to understand, like, on Center Road, the Travinsky property, like Erica and Charlie now have, it's Burroughs Farm, it's like a homestead, but they have goats and they have like tons of animals, they do their gardening, they make a couple products, it's not like it's a hobby farm, but where do you classify those if they're actual agricultural? Like, are they allowed to? I'm not questioning you, I'm just trying to put it in order, because they sell a little bit, but they're not really public, they're quasi, but they're very much agricultural, they have agricultural land, acres of corn, acres of field, like, where does that fit in our?
Well, I'll
That's, I
defer
mean,
to
that's all, yeah, okay.
farmers here,
Are you
but-
asking the question of Joe?
Well, no, I'm just asking the question in general, because he brought up, the
Right.
qualifying farms, and I'm not trying to be combative, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to understand where everybody thinks, so that was one specific instance that came to
That's,
mind. To
yeah,
see
I
where-
mean, you are going to raise a question of you're drawing a line, you're drawing a box, and there's always going to be someone on the other side of that line or on the other side of that box that you have to account for. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I was just curious, I wasn't trying to say.
But they're not, I think Joe's concerned with somebody buying a property, house or barn, and then having an event thing and calling
Right.
it a farm.
Right,
But if somebody wants to have an event thing and call it, name it somebody's farm, then, but it's not actually a farm, it's just a name.
event,
They're
yeah,
not getting tax advantages. I mean, you know what I mean? Just, if somebody wants to call their place, such and such Old McDonald's farm.
Oh,
even
yeah,
if it's big-
yeah, the
So, I mean,
naming is different,
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's
It's
just-
just the
it's
tax advantages that they don't have to go through, or the permitting process if you, considered an agricultural enterprise. The permitting process for anything is far more relaxed than if you're a commercial, enterprise. And like John said, draw a box around some definition, and then
somebody's
there
got-
are people who try and figure out how to work outside the box.
And one thing we've already got done was the raising the tax exempt limit on machinery buildings.
Yep. Okay. All right, are we good to move on right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we get into housing as part of our develop section. Again, some background talking about, basically the past 20 years following the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. Doing a little bit of a demographic housing breakdown, discussing how, Woodstock is very significantly single family detached residences with smaller percentages of multifamily and a small number of properties with accessory apartments. Basically looking at a total of a little over 3,700 housing units in Woodstock. We do talk about the Affordable Housing Plan, which was adopted a couple of years ago following Public Act 17170, and some of the detail that was in there. I think we talked a little bit about this last month. We need to change the title of this one, which
Before we get to that,
yeah,
John, just.
Yeah.
My little idiosyncrasy back under 51, where it says Woodstock is predominantly a single family owner occupied residential community. I'd feel
That's
more
what-
comfortable if you just drop the word residential.
okay. Okay, we're talking about residences.
And we're also saying Woodstock is predominantly this, so we're giving, again, an impression of predominantly a residential community.
Okay,
Again,
I'll
all we're trying to do is
yeah.
keep a sense that it's an agricultural community.
Okay, my computer is on the struggle bus. which we'll deal with when we get to the transportation section.
Okay.
Isn't it clear to say as well as a farming community? In addition to that, as opposed to leaving residential out of it, just seems kind of anodyne. I mean, if you say
I'm okay to say residential and.
residential as well as a farming, I mean, that's just kind of putting it.
I think
We're
trying to focus on the housing part here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. That adds to some of the emphasis of being a farming community.
Yeah.
You get
All right.
that, John?
I'm gonna ask you to repeat that, and I'm also apologizing. My screen crashed. I lost all of the edits that we had just done until this meeting. So I have to redo that. Okay, so I'm on the housing section. Joe, where were you? I'm sorry.
Paragraph of page 51.
Okay, owner occupied. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we want to say residential and agriculture? What do we want to say here?
Well, as farming community, is that what you said, John?
owner occupied residential as well as a farming community. Owner occupied residential as well as farming.
Or owner occupied residential and farming community?
Owner occupied residential as well as farming community.
Okay.
An alternative is to say Woodstock's housing is predominantly single family owner occupied.
I like that.
Okay, that's consistent with this section, talking about housing,
I'm fine with it.
Woodstock housing and drop residential community altogether.
Yeah, just take the community out and talk about the houses.
I'm fine with that.
Housing.
The Woodstock housing is predominantly,
Single family or occupied.
yep.
Okay.
We're taking out community too.
Community and the word, I think predominantly single family owner occupied.
Yep.
I see.
See, does that, as noted, profile of Woodstock, or Woodstock housing is predominantly single family owner occupied. House, period.
Yeah.
Period. Good.
Okay,
Hey, John, maybe-
I'm just gonna make a note here. I just wanna, I don't wanna lose the thought that of Amy's selective promotion of, all right, I'll fill in the rest later. Okay, I just wanna make sure we captured that.
You had it worded nicely about.
It's video.
I was gonna say, you can go back.
Yeah, I'll go back and get the video. Okay, all right.
Yep.
So now we're on housing. Shall we move on? So a lot of this stuff was on pages 52 and 53 were basically taken from the town's existing affordable housing plan, as well as the Connecticut Department of Housing's consolidated plan for housing and community development. We reviewed some of the specific recommendations from the Affordable Housing Plan of 2022, and then talk a little bit about how there is a new housing growth plan requirement that was created as part of Public Act 25-1, and the town is going to be working with NECOG for its housing growth plan over the next couple of years. So it's a little bit, we talk about the housing planning we've done and the housing planning we're about to do. And then get into some of the recommendations.
Can we go back to page 52?
Mm-hmm.
Just to help clarify some of the language. And this is what I was talking about at our last meeting. And Aaron pointed out maybe just the title or table, how many Woodstock families are in need of affordable housing.
Mhm.
And then the table shows what it shows, which to me implies these are currently residents of Woodstock who have these different type of housing
Yeah,
Or
because
red.
that's what it does show.
Okay, so. What is the table showing to say we're in need of?
Affordable housing.
Yeah, but how many are in need of? This table doesn't show how many are in need of. These are presumably existing.
So
If
you're
my
asking,
if my numbers are right, that's 425 plus 235. That's 760 plus 115. So you're looking at about 775.
Yeah,
I think
These
Joe is
people
saying
have
they
that.
already live
They
here,
already have housing. How many people need housing?
just because you, like. My guess, or I read it as they're living here, but maybe they're struggling or they can't,
That's
would
correct.
be better in a home of us, or would they qualify, like, you know what I
Should we
mean?
say Qualify then?
Yeah,
you could
so
say- Woodstock County is that.
how many homes would benefit from affordable housing, I think, instead of in need of, because I know there were lots of years where I had zero money because all my money went to housing, and it was a struggle. And if there was something cheaper when my kids were younger, it would have been great, you know what I mean? But there's
Right.
not. So that's what I think of because I've lived through it. So maybe say how many families would benefit from
or you,
affordable housing.
or you could say in need of more affordable housing.
Either
Well,
one.
I think benefit takes
Okay.
away that sense.
That's fine. This table is from your affordable housing plan.
I know,
Okay.
and it wasn't clear when we wrote the affordable housing plan. Because
So I can't actually change the title of this. I'll have to recreate the whole thing because this is a screenshot, but we can take care of that.
I'm just wanting to go to the first paragraph below the bullets, below the table.
Mhm. Yep.
Says, in response to this significant shortfall. I'm not sure what the significant shortfall is. Again, it's just the language that makes something sound pretty terrible.
I think it's the fact that there's hardly any,
Offer me an alternative phrasing, please.
there's not enough affordable housing.
Well, then I would say just drop that phrase and start with the recommendation in the affordable housing.
Could you say in response to the significant shortfall of affordable housing?
I don't know the number for the shortfall. So I'm just saying. drop this.
775 isn't good enough a number for you?
Say that again?
775, that's not a number that's appropriate to be referenced? That's what the table says.
Making some assumptions that implies all 775 households are looking for different housing.
So I don't think you need that phrase in response to this significant shortfall.
That's all I'm
Just take
saying.
it up. Yeah.
And start with.
It doesn't add
recommendation.
anything, I don't think.
Well, to me, it sends a crisis level
Yeah.
sense, term.
When you're
All
living in
those
a
775
crisis
people may be saying this is a crisis
Yeah.
level.
And so so therefore we should feel less interested in doing something about it.
No.
Okay. I'm
There's
taking at your word.
families or households,
Who are struggling.
but they're already at those levels.
We wanna say that, we
Yeah.
have to say it much more much clearer and more distinctive.
Yeah,
The people are suffering and they're having a hard time, this doesn't do it, I mean, it's just.
this table doesn't do it.
Well, no, the table's fine, just in response to this significant shortfall, it doesn't. But if we wanna get into that, write a sentence or a paragraph that actually says, Woodstock is currently suffering, or has a dearth of affordable housing.
What this doesn't show, but is in the affordable housing plan with other tables, it shows how much housing is available. That's not considered by definition affordable housing, and that's where we're using the term attainable. That the rent or mortgage rates were at the affordable housing level, but the property itself was not considered by definition affordable housing, so it's discounted. Which sounds very confusing because there are different ways of looking at the housing issue. And I'm not sure what information, how this information came about. I mean, I can read it, that it came from the HUD Comprehensive Housing Survey.
See, this is showing the income
Yeah,
level and not as far as a rent, how much rent actually is or mortgage payment. This is stating it's 80, you have 775 households that are below, that are in the low or very low income levels. Which
Yes.
is stated, that's below the 80% of the median income. So that's not saying anything about how many actual houses are here or how many more houses we need. That's just telling the number of people.
that are here, that are living here
Yes.
But there's,
in some level of housing.
yes, but there's this, I mean, we've heard people come in and talk to us about housing where rents are raised and they have to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a whole host of people that would like to live in town, that can't, that have grown up here. They can't live here, so I mean, this is what we have and we need more.
So why not be more specific and say, in response to increasing numbers of Woodstock residents who are having difficulty affording their housing, the recommendations of the affordable housing plan are intended to something along those lines, where you're more specific that lots of people are having trouble affording adequate housing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I just,
That would be okay. I'm just concerned about the phrasing, the significant shortfall.
no,
I don't know that
it
there's a
doesn't
short-
really mean it.
Based on this.
Yes, I agree.
could you repeat that, John?
In response to increasing numbers of Woodstock residents who are having difficulty finding housing they can afford, something along those lines. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have to sort of sit and think about it, but.
Okay, so I
John, does that
don't know
make
if this is
sense?
how clear this is on the screen. In response to the increasing numbers of Woodstock residents who are having difficulty in finding and keeping housing that they can afford, comma, the recommendations in.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Adeletta?
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you, John. Both Johns, thank you.
okay, so then again, we go through this is, again, the next section is really just quoting from the state plan as well as the town's existing plans. And then getting into the looking forward towards the housing growth plan, and then we get into the recommendations where it's at the top of page 55, which hopefully would be the next place for massaging of language.
John, just back up a bit, I have a simple question, bottom of page 52. Has list the first goal,
I'm sorry, 52, where are you? 50?
page 52, down towards the bottom.
52.
Underneath
the
the
rec-
chart. Low income
First goal.
chart.
The
Yeah, first
52,
goal.
that is from the state's consolidated plan of housing.
All
It's a
right.
quote.
I just saw the word decent and figured, well, boy, that's open for interpretation, but if that's what the state's using, fine.
That is a direct quote from the state's plan.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You want me to put decent in quotes?
No, thanks.
Okay. All right, so I'm going once, going twice. Recommendation, any wordsmithing of those recommendations before we get into infrastructure? Okay, moving on to infrastructure. So we're getting into public water and wastewater management. Again, talking about the vast majority of town functioning on private wells and private septic systems that are regulated and managed by NDDH, as well as Connecticut Public Health Code. Talk a little bit about the sewer district, obviously focusing on the fact that we're under a sewer avoidance policy. Talking a little bit about the district itself, and the WPCA operations. A lot of this was taken from the prior draft of the plan, throwing in a map of existing water system or sewer system. I'll note that discussion and description of the extent of the public water and sewer system is a mandatory discussion point of plan of conservation and development. We do basically pull some recommendations from WPCA. These are recommendations that they suggested be included in the plan, which have to do primarily with operational management, fees, making sure that we coordinate any extensions or improvements along with road paving, communication with existing ratepayers, and then understanding statewide capacity. So it's pretty operational, and again, it's at this point not making any particular recommendations relative to the town's existing sewer avoidance, other than some of the statements earlier that, broadly speaking, if you avoid sewer extensions, you create a more difficult scenario to increase certain types of higher intensive residential and business uses, which I would hope would be self-evident. Any questions or comments about the sewer and water infrastructure? Okay, transportation infrastructure. Getting into our being a very large town, relatively speaking, very auto dependent, a lot of miles of roads to maintain, both state and local, as well as scenic roads, the town scenic roads and the National Scenic Byway of Route 169. A little bit about travel volumes, and again, a little bit about the scenic roads and some of the very historic roads in town, creating both some of the bucolic character and maintenance and travel challenges occasionally. For those of you who may have attempted to drive up and down Quarry Road doing zoning inspections in a Toyota Prius, know that these can be difficult.
Just out of curiosity, the traffic counts that you have,
Mhm.
where did they come from? I guess it's
The Connecticut DOT.
okay. Just
We could note that.
would be good to know that, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so we add that qualifier. Thank you. And this should be steep slopes, not step slopes. Okay. So we talk a little bit about the scenic roadway ordinance, and then a little bit about a couple of key intersections in terms of safety. Specifically 171 of Pulpit Rock Road, the 169, 171 intersections. Calling those out largely to make sure that they're in the plan for potential, grant and road safety purposes. Should we wish to have that engaged, and get involved with grant opportunities. And focusing on that, we talk a little bit about alternative transportation, not a tremendous amount. Obviously, biking, our dial ride, and some other alternative systems. The Northeast Transit, the dial ride systems, as well as options with those for limited mobility. We're talk a little bit about bike travel and the importance of that, the importance of safety, and frankly, Woodstock's popularity because of the scenic nature of its roads and relatively low traffic counts, making it broadly friendly to bicycles, but that could certainly be improved. We talked a little bit about a couple of higher tendency crash areas, which again, there weren't that many over the 5-year period between 2021 and 2025. There were 121 reported incidents, most of them major, though a couple of hotspot crash areas where you'd expect it, like basically the 169, 171 stretch in South Woodstock near the Woodstock Fair. And so again, that's, it's relatively low numbers speaking broadly. And then looking at recommendations for, maintenance, safety improvements, bicycle, promotion of bicycle lanes, bicycle safety, and wayfinding, that sort of thing, as well as the continued effort to increase our enforcement abilities on scenic roads. Anything else on transportation? Okay, hearing none. Power and telecommunications. Not a ton here, just talking a little bit about how power and telecommunications is increasingly important. We still have some cell service challenges in town, and trying to increase our capacity, particularly as and I don't want to say bedroom community, but as a rural agricultural community that would have opportunities for people to work at home and not necessarily travel to work, wanting to make sure that we increase our opportunities for 100% coverage for high-speed data, and opportunities for broadband access throughout town. Again, without going too far and really disrupting the rural character. That's a natural challenge. Cell phone towers, rural vistas, and that sort of thing. And so we did put in a recommendation specifically to talk about working with the siting council on making sure that new towers are environmentally appropriate and protective of our natural resources. Questions about power and data infrastructure?
Yes, John. Doug Porter.
Hi, Doug.
The town requires underground power on new subdivisions and has for quite a few years. But now that you're trying to get updated internet connections, fiber optics and the like, the companies are not doing it on the neighborhoods that have underground power. They're doing the wired ones, but haven't even think about doing it in the areas with underground power. I've approached Frontier several times. They say, well, it's not on our radar. So it's one of those, it's great not to have the poles in your neighborhood in those new subdivisions, but it also does create a potential problem of getting updates and things like that. I just want to mention it.
But that doesn't preclude fiber optics from being put in also underground.
But it would just go by a pole rather than a conduit.
Well, they can't do it because our regulations don't allow them to put poles in new subdivisions.
Yeah.
So they're just not doing it. And what it's going to, what I'm going to do personally is I'm probably going to have to go to Starlink, because it doesn't seem like Frontier's interested in doing it in those neighborhoods that have underground power. And John, you could let me know, have any internet companies done any work on neighborhoods that have underground power?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know offhand, Doug. I can check with some of my planners network.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll just add, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen, I'll add a recommendation to undertake conversation with data service providers in areas of underground utilities to use existing underground conduit to serve these neighborhoods.
Yeah, and when SNAT was in business, they ran a spare conduit in when we put in underground,
just a little
but they own it.
Yeah.
So no one else can use it except whoever bought out SNAT. But so now they're looking at having to dig it up or tunnel it to get the new upgraded service.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Okay. Are we all set?
John,
Move on to educate. Yeah, Amy.
Minute. Is there any way to address speeding and safety? Like look into grant funding or programs for reducing speeds, and I don't know if that exists, but it should. Do you know of any way to speeding with those?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's all sorts of things that municipalities can do. If you've driven on Dog Lane in Mansfield, you know that they've got speed bumps. There's a half a dozen speed bumps up and down Dog Lane. Municipalities are empowered to do some traffic calming things, speed tables, speed humps, narrow, like road diets. There are lots of things we can do. State roads are a little bit more challenging, but yeah.
Recommend to investigate possible solutions for speeding issues,
The traffic calming, I think that's,
however it is. And
Yeah.
that's a big thing in town, I think,
Yeah.
speeding on these roads. Cause we have these great roads to walk on and bike on, but you take your life in your hands when you're on them, so.
That's not a new issue.
No, it's not, but it would be, if there is something out there, looking for it would be helpful.
John, for multifamily, assuming we, as a commission, go in that direction, and that's gonna include parking lots. Design standards for these larger parking lots, is that something that would fall under this P O C D here? Or is that something that we would address with each and every application that wanders in?
Can you give me a little more to work with there? What do you mean?
Well, multifamily developments, I think, are gonna have parking lots for the residents. Do we kind of allow the developer to put them where he or she wants or try to hide them somewhere? Can the commission develop design standards or guidelines that could, make these things look a little more appealing? So, are those kind of ideas or thoughts something that should come into the P O C D as a recommendation that we look at, consider, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, sure.
But I think that the actual design and layout, that falls under when we form our regulations, those.
Yeah.
That come under
Okay,
our
yeah,
P and Z, our committee, when we make those, when we get to dealing with multifamily or bigger.
Sure.
Bigger multifamily. structures.
Right. And I do think, I think some of the, this is getting back to some of the prior discussions we've had in planning and zoning before we got into this plan of making sure that, basically being far less concerned with the density of the development than we are concerned with the visual and community impact of the development. And that would certainly include parking, the visual impact of parking, landscaping, lighting, that sort of thing. I think that's absolutely appropriate. I'll also note Public Act 25-1, which this is not something that that Woodstock necessarily needs to do anything current with the regulations about, but Public Act 25-1 eliminated arbitrary minimum off-street parking requirements for all multifamily developments 16 units or under. So if you have a multifamily development of 16 units, the town is actually not allowed to deny it for lack of perceived on-site parking. Over 16 units, 17 or more, municipalities are restricted from requiring parking numbers over 1 parking spot per studio or 1 bedroom and 2 parking spots for 2+ bedrooms. So parking numbers per state statute are coming way down. For multifamily, Woodstock, we tend to have a regulation that's basically show us how much parking you need and show us where it's going to be. We don't hit people with formulas, but your point, Sid, I think is the visual impact, or perhaps the community impact, which is not covered in those regulations. And I think that's something we should consider. So the very long answer to your question, Sid, is yes.
Thank you.
John, I have one thing for the power and telecommunications utilities section.
Okay.
Could we put something in there about exploring a municipal electric utility?
I'm happy to put it in. Is anyone going to object if I put that in?
I mean, I know it's probably expensive and potentially not feasible, but with Eversource's rates and everything, why not explore?
Maybe a
Alternate
Yeah.
energy. I don't think you'll do your own municipality, maybe
Like
regional.
like Norwich Power and Utility, like Norwich Power and Water.
Woodstock's never gonna do it all itself. Maybe regional owns the power supply.
Yeah, we have no gas lines.
No, you're not making your own power.
You're buying it wholesale off of, you know,
It's cheaper and it's better.
ISO New England or whatever. Yeah. Interesting. I have no problem. I think that's, you know, it's interesting. We a couple of years ago, we wrote the Deep River Town Plan of Conservation and Development. They were very interested in doing the same thing.
Did they go anywhere with it?
Not yet. You know, we have to wait till they have a new first selectman.
I mean, it's certainly put in something to consider.
Okay. All right. Moving on to education, which, you know, shouldn't be no controversy at all. So we'll breeze through this one. Okay, so a lot of this data is coming from, the narrative is coming from the Board of Ed and the Woodstock school system itself. Talk about the quality of the Woodstock school system, as well as the Woodstock Academy being the sending school historically for hundreds of years now. Some of the data, the sort of Connecticut report card, which came from Connecticut Ed site, and our graduation rates. Again, this is just sort of deals primarily with the demographics and trends and data. We noted the representatives as you know, as part of the interview and public outreach process. Woodstock Board of Education highlighted a couple of challenges in terms of operating costs, you know, challenges with doing more with less, the difficulty of not having direct control over the high school tuition, you know, placing the town at least a little bit under the gun, kind of a take it or leave it situation. But these, again, the challenges were from the school district itself. The recommendations are a combination of work with the Plan of Conservation and Development Committee, as well as drafting the plan. So hopefully it's relatively straightforward. Again, education, you know, tampering with the education management is really not the role of the Plan of Conservation and Development. So we try to avoid too much in terms of heavy recommendation for change. But so we talk about things like working actively on their strategic plan, making sure they're funding to, you know, do all of the projects that they need to do, making sure that we have good partnerships with our regional higher ed partners, etc. You know, I'm happy to make any edits here that may be necessary. But I did recall, well, there was a lot of editing that happened at the committee level on this. We spent a lot of time wordsmithing this one, as I see Amy nodding vociferously. So what I'm saying is this has been picked over. So if you've got something, make it good.
Well, you really don't want us to touch this, do you, John?
I'm happy to. But you know, someone's gonna have you change it back in a little bit. So I don't know, Madam Committee Chair, you have anything you want to say on this one?
Ben went through it, and I mean, that's their wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We all know the challenges.
So we'll move on to resilience and sustainability, if that's all right. So we talk a little bit about, you know, broadly speaking, our infrastructure needs as that relates to existing natural hazards, floods, you know, winter storms, nor'easters, hurricanes, that sort of thing, which seem to be happening more severely and more intensely, as well as the natural hazards mitigation plan documents that was put together by NECOG to make sure that we're eligible for FEMA relief. Talk a little bit about our critical facilities, not only, you know, the schools, the fire station, town hall, emergency management, as well as looking over some of our critical bridge areas that need to be addressed as, you know, as flooding gets worse and as infrastructure gets old. So again, a lot of this is pulled from the natural hazards mitigation plan. We talk a little bit about flooding risk, and then a few recommendations about continuing to work with NECOG and the state on understanding how continued climate change and storm intensity and frequency will affect our infrastructure. making sure that we plan properly for hazard events, both in flood scenarios as well as drought scenarios, as we are a predominantly agricultural community. Looking at things like low impact development, increased infiltration through on-site rainwater capture and that sort of thing. Looking at our natural resources, particularly water resources, and our infrastructure, and the reestablishment of the Green Energy Committee, which I think has been a little bit idle as of late. Input on that,
Looks good.
Mr. Palulik? Nothing?
Well, I sat in
We did it all
on the,
before.
subcommittee.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. It's true. It's true. You were active there. All right. So the fact that you have nothing to add is take a bow, Joe. Okay, so that is chapter 5. That is the develop portion. And I will look to you, Mr. Chair, in terms of a time check. The next section, the last major topical section, is enjoy. If you want to get into that this evening.
Well, what time is it? I can't even read that.
It's about 8:45.
I mean, I would like to finish up by 9. I think we can we get through the enjoy part and
I can.
With cooperation of us, yeah.
well, I mean, a lot of people on the rec committee and all that, I'm sure have major inputs on this.
So
let's
yeah. Okay,
let's try to see if we
I'll go through, and if people have notes, I'll do a brief narrative. So again, the goal here, we envision a Woodstock that enjoys the abundance of resources and opportunities and strengthens the common ties that draw the community together. So we talk a lot in this section about the small rural agricultural community with a limited government being, large in size and large in resources, but therefore needing the incredible dedication and resources pulled from our armies of volunteers and our organizations, volunteer organizations, nonprofits, community organizations, as well as governmental, that make Woodstock what it is. And so we do what I hope is a fairly comprehensive delineation of some of the special resources. I'll go, Roseland Park, Roseland Cottage, the golf courses, our youth resources, which includes camping, scouting, the soccer clubs and Little League, the YMCA camp, certainly the Palmer Arboretum, our ponds and beaches, all of these civic organizations. And I'm sure there were some that we left off. This was vetted a couple of times through the committee. Hopefully we didn't miss too many of them. But again, the point here is all of this is background of all of the various resources that is made possible by the history of Woodstock, the maintenance of that, and the organizations that make that possible. Talk about the Luce Center, the airports, the Woodstock Airport primarily. The Toutant Airport, as people know, has been on for sale for a while. The libraries, which was the topic of extensive discussion at the committee level, which are, multiple and independent libraries. And then we have specific recommendations for those resources that include the arboretums, the parks, the beaches, the libraries. And then we get into recreation. So I'll stop there.
I got one personal picky thing on ponds and beaches.
Yes.
I know that it's called on the maps, it's Muddy Pond, but could you say anywhere you put in locally known as Pond Factory?
Yes. Also, we do. We actually do say that.
Okay.
Ponds and beaches. The first line says the town beach located on Muddy Pond in northern Woodstock, also referred to as Pond Factory or St. Mary's.
Sorry. Okay.
That's my favorite thing to do is tell you it's already in the plan.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad. I saw Muddy Pond and was like,
okay. Yep.
Great.
Okay. So we'll get into, so now the next is recreation, which obviously, talks about the variety of, and so this is mostly focused about the Woodstock recreation department and their offerings. everything from the runs to drawing clubs, senior walking clubs, pickleball, lots of activities that they're promoting. They talked about some of their challenges. Some of this data came directly from the recreation department. And again, looking at maintaining close communications with the town and the department to make sure that they have sufficient resources to continue to deliver the programs that they want to deliver. They had some very specific recommendations, which are there bulleted on page 72. Again, these came directly from the recreation department. We then get into the community events and gatherings and talk a little bit about sort of the year in Woodstock and the various events that bring the community together. Woodstock Marathon, Memorial Day, the 4th of July Jamboree. Hope to see some of you guys there. The Woodstock Fair, Roseland Cottage Art Festival, Winter Festival, etc. And again, continuing to support these, to both celebrate and support these as critical to the character of Woodstock, which then gets you into the volunteerism, which I attempted to in the prior draft. Actually, let me stop there. Anything about recreation and volunteerism? No. Okay. So then boards and commissions. In the prior draft that I don't know if you guys I don't know if this commission has seen, but had multiple pages per each commission, which struck me as a little bit heavy-handed. So we tried to keep this relatively quick, but give a description of each of the incredibly important committees and commissions that are part of the town government, that are staffed by volunteers and have various responsibilities without belaboring them too much, but just as a way to just share how much work goes into maintaining what happens in Woodstock. So everything from the Arboretum, Commission on Aging, Conservation, Crystal Pond, Historic Commission, Historic Properties Commission, the Housing Authority, Wetlands, and so on. It's quite a lot, as you are all aware, and I'm sure you're all in multiple of these groups. But so the recommendations again are about enhancing and recognizing the efforts of volunteers. So holding quarterly meetings to make sure that the commissions understand each other, understand staff, and have a better understanding. Improving broad communications, keeping our website up to date so communications is better. As well as looking at making sure that the needs of these various commissions and boards are served by the town budget process and capital improvement projects, so that things continue to grow and move forward. Questions about that? Okay, then we get into tourism and visitors. And I mean, some of this is obviously very closely related to the develop or the economic development promotion. But this is part of what makes Woodstock Woodstock in terms of its enjoyment are the things that we like to go and do and go and see, and like the fact that people come to Woodstock to see. Certainly the big event there is the Woodstock Fair. We talk a little bit about that. But then there's also a significant amount of outdoor recreation, hunting, hiking, biking, trails, conservation opportunities, and we talk about some of those things. We return a little bit to the idea of agritourism here because, again, that's an important promotion, bringing people to town to appreciate the natural resources and enjoy Woodstock. And then we get into some of those recommendations relative to the Woodstock Fair, agritourism, bicycling events, promotion of Quiet Corner and Mischief Country, and that sort of thing to promote that sort of visitation and tourism. So I'll stop there. Any comments on those? Okay, Mr. Chair, we still have 10 minutes. You can talk a little bit about the implementation stuff just in general.
We can certainly start on this. Yes.
Just ask a question, John. I didn't look through the whole draft yet. Was there a section that covered the back of supporting the agricultural aspect of Woodstock, the economic analysis showing the benefit of agricultural enterprises in terms of their usage of town requirements versus commercial versus residential.
Yep.
Those, oh, is that in there? Is that what you're going to?
The implementing.
That's under.
So it's
implement.
it's actually in I have to take a look. Oh wait, here it is. So this is on page 39.
39. Okay.
39, and then it's echoed. Also, all the recommendations that are throughout the plan are then echoed in the implementation guide itself. So every recommendation actually appears twice. So the recommendation here is update the cost of community services study, which I believe is what you're referring to help the
Exactly
community
that.
understand. Right.
Okay,
So there you
thank
go.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
It's already in the plan.
It's already in the plan. Y'all can
Great.
say it together. Okay, and so what? So as I literally just explained, so implementation. This is just the compiled. So we had recommendations basically on every third page of the plan, right? In the various areas. So under water resources, we have water resources recommendations. Under broadband internet, we have broadband internet recommendations. Under agritourism, right? And so all of these, this is basically the consolidated list, which is still extraordinarily long. It's 20 pages or so of recommendations, but it's a way of, if you are going to say, all right, what's the to-do list from this plan? This last section is the to-do list. And so what we broke it down, we took the actual recommendation, which is the first column that appears in different sections of the plan, and we assign it a couple of things. We assign it a lead entity, which is to say whose job is this, supporting entity, which is who can help, how when it should be undertaken. So is this ongoing? Is it in the first couple of years? Can it wait a couple of years? And then a sense of the order of magnitude of the cost of the action. So when we look at things like providing education to farmland owners, that's a relatively low cost thing. That's a single dollar. I put that as basically less than $10,000. That's basically someone, the Agriculture Commission working with staff can put some of that stuff together. And then obviously as you go in, some things are extraordinarily expensive. These are multi-million-dollar things. But in each case, we try to give this a little bit of specificity, and I don't remember who was asking for that, if that was Aaron or Sid or someone else, about what each task has, who's responsible, who needs to help, when does it need to happen, and about how much is it going to cost. We tried to do that with everything, and that's how we're structuring this. So if you go back, and maybe this was actually John Day who said this, and track how are we doing, what are the things that can be done, this is your to-do list. And we can, if need be, sort this by lead entity, sort this by whose responsibility is it, or sort it on what are the things we need to do in the first 3 years. You could sort the table in all of those different ways to make it a little bit more trackable or accountable. But there's nothing, there's no new content here other than, my best guess, hopefully educated guess on who would be the entities responsible to undertake this primarily. So that, if you had quibbles with some of those things, it would be more on the implementation elements rather than the language of the recommendations themselves, because the language is taken from the plan.
Yep.
And that's my summary of the implementation table.
I would add two suggestions maybe, while we talk about this, or maybe three. The table, if you can put it to the different chapters, to show like chapter 1 is.
Yes, so it is organized. Like, so right here, this at the top, all of the things below the gray are from the protect chapter. And then, it's a lot of stuff. You have to go down to page 91. So now this is all developed. And so it is, but it's not broken down further.
Good.
Yeah.
So, all right. It's
already in the
plan.
Then the other one might be for the columns to have a priority rating and a status column, which I think we talked about before a meeting, who determines what the priority is of these things. And that was going to be a discussion here, I think, to give some guidance from at least our consideration of all of these recommendations,
Yeah.
what might our commission feel is a priority rating.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's yeah, I am happy to include that. I have found in previous plans and previous towns that can be a bit of a sticky wicket. And so we've sort of used time frame as a slightly lesser heavy-handed analog of that. So if something needs to be done in the first 3 years, it's hopefully by definition a higher priority. But if you guys want to be a little bit more prescriptive than that, we can certainly add it.
Okay.
John, you might want to consider making this section landscape to fit the table better. I feel like it might look better.
Oh yeah, no, this whole the document layout is not at all going to be what we're seeing here. This is just a text draft essentially.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be, and I am planning to, and I although I will say, as a fairly old school document author and reader, I prefer portrait layout, but I recognize that, some 90-something% of people will be interfacing with this plan on a landscape oriented computer screen. And so that really should be the default layout. So yes, this will be landscape oriented. But good call, Aaron.
Do we have any comments or questions?
So what I would propose, Mr. Chair, would be, so we have a number of edits here. And there were a number of edits from the prior discussion last month that have not been incorporated. So now I've got all of your initial comments. I will present to you, and hell, I'll even do it in landscape. I'll give you guys a revised complete draft for the next month's meeting, where we can basically take another look at it. And my hope would be that at that time we can discuss a process of public hearing and public conversation about this. So basically, if it's ready to go, we can post it to the town website. So basically, the procedure is once you have a draft that you're basically comfortable with, you need to give the state and the town, as well as the COG, 65 days before you open your public hearing for their review and comment. The Board of Selectmen, it needs to be posted in the town clerk's office, on the town website, with NECOG and with the state. They get 65 days, and then you can have your public hearing. So ideally, we will have that conversation about that timing and scheduling at the next month's meeting.
Yeah, then, so that'll put us into the fall and
Correct.
hopefully get this wrapped up.
So what's the status of the implementation schedule? Are we going to be looking at this some more to, you said, John, that this was your best estimation of maybe appropriate committees or groups to do the implementing and the time frame. Obviously, no dollar figures are here. Are these other groups, the Housing Authority, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, are they aware that they might have these assignments or responsibility areas?
They soon will be, as soon as we make this broadly public. But it's I'll note, I mean, obviously they can have input at this point. They get input like anyone else. This is your plan. You're the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is your plan. If they disagree, they can make that testimony either before the public hearing or at the public hearing, and you guys can decide to change the plan or tell them to suck it up and get busy. This is your plan. And I mean, Amy, the group that helped assemble this in committee was somewhat broadly represented. So you had folks from conservation, you had folks from economic development and the seniors and wetlands and that sort of thing. So there were groups. There probably are groups in here that were not represented fully. But yeah, so at any rate, I would encourage you, now that you sort of understand how the implementation table works, over the next month, please take a look at that. These are easy tweaks, right? That, if we just need to change the name of an organization in one of those cells, that's an easy tweak. So if you And I'll note, I mean, the committee reviewed these also, and we made some changes about assigning principal roles and supporting roles. But if you have changes, let's make the changes, you know?
From the state's perspective, if the column of dollar amount is left blank, is that going to be an issue, or is it better just to maybe delete that column altogether?
No, he had dollar signs in there and estimates. It wasn't.
There was
he
no
just-
dollar.
It was
No.
order there were order of magnitude, Joe. It's like a Zagat rating on a restaurant. Like, is it a $4 sign restaurant or a $2 sign restaurant? It's
$1. Somewhere $1, yeah, some had two.
Sorry, missed that. Okay, thank
And there
you.
were, like, $1 sign is under.
Yeah, low cost, okay.
And then 2 was
10 to 100,
and then
greater than
I
100
didn't
to
see
a
too
million,
many
and
that
then more
were
than
Oh,
that.
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
it's order of magnitude estimates.
okay,
well,
thank you.
thank you, John, and I certainly want to thank the commission that worked on, put so much time and effort into drawing this up. Really appreciate it, and I think I think it's a really good plan. It seems usable and functional.
It's not bad for a bedroom community.
Or an agricultural community.
Any other comments?
So one thing about, so we bring up community, sometimes in the draft, it's referenced as a municipality. Can those two be used interchangeably? Does it matter? Do we care?
This is just my way of, this is my internal thesaurus by not saying town. It's just, switching up, changing happy for glad. Yeah, but yeah, I use, and I mean, I try to be as accurate as possible, when I'm talking about, the elements of Woodstock that include volunteer organizations and nonprofits and things like that. We talk about community. If I use capital T town, I generally mean the government. Municipality tends to mean the physical, geography of Woodstock, the 4 boundaries of Woodstock. But it's also just to avoid saying the same noun over and over again.
Okay.
See, now we're getting into the stuff I like to talk about. The word choice.
We have no citizens here for citizens comment. Do you have somebody make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Okay.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you, John.
All right, thanks, guys.
Good night and happy 4th of July.